Imagine this. You're scrolling through social media and see a heartfelt obituary. Friends, family, even news outlets mourn the loss. You share it, maybe even comment with condolences. But a year later, you find out the dead man is alive and standing trial for serious crimes. If someone can fake their death so convincingly in 2020, imagine how many lies could be hiding in your own social media feed right now. How does someone pull off faking their own death in the internet age? And more importantly, how do investigators catch them when the entire world believes they're gone? Tonight, we investigate Nicholas Alahverdian, the man accused of dying twice. This isn't just about one elaborate con. This is about how digital deception works, why it almost always fails, and what it means for anyone who trusts what they see online. Here's the question that should terrify you. If this man could fool obituary writers, news outlets, and thousands of mourners, who else in your digital world might not be who they claim to be? Let me show you exactly how the lies unraveled and why this case should change how you verify everything you see online. He thought he could control his story by controlling his death. But here's what Nicholas Alahverdian didn't understand about the internet. Nothing ever really disappears. Nicholas Alahverdian understood the digital landscape better than most. According to court documents, he built his reputation as a vocal critic of Rhode Island's child welfare system, presenting himself as a survivor-turned-advocate through media interviews and carefully crafted online content. But think about this for a second. How easy would it be for you to create a completely false online identity right now? A few fake social media accounts, some manufactured backstory, maybe a fake LinkedIn profile? In the digital age, identity is just content. What investigators would later discover is that authorities say he used at least 10 to 16 aliases throughout his adult life, including Nicholas Rossi, each with its own digital footprint, each serving a different purpose in what prosecutors allege was an elaborate scheme to evade accountability. In early 2020, as the world grappled with the global pandemic, online tributes and an obituary announced Alahverdian's death from cancer. As reported by the BBC and AP, the narrative was complete. Final words, a solemn farewell, and pleas to remember his advocacy work. Friends and observers mourned. Social media filled with condolences. Here's the terrifying part. It worked. Completely. News outlets reported his death. People grieved for him. The internet mourned a man who was very much alive. But here's where the story takes an incredible turn, because the same technology that enabled his deception was about to become his downfall. And it all started with one phone call to a hospital in Scotland. He thought he could disappear behind an oxygen mask in a Scottish hospital. One photograph would change everything. December 2021, a man is hospitalized in Glasgow, Scotland, suffering from COVID-19. He identifies himself as Arthur Knight, claims to be a British businessman with a convincing accent, and presents himself as a victim of mistaken identity when authorities arrive with an international warrant. Now, put yourself in the investigator's shoes. You're looking at a man who insists he's someone else in a foreign country, claiming the real suspect is dead. How do you prove identity when the person is fighting you every step of the way? According to court documents, investigators had a wealth of biometric data to compare. But hospitals are forensic gold mines. Fingerprints on medical forms, DNA from blood samples, photographs for medical records, and most importantly, detailed documentation of distinguishing physical features. The breakthrough came through distinctive tattoos that couldn't be explained away by accent changes or medical distress. As BBC investigators later reported, these weren't generic tattoos that could belong to anyone. They were specific, unique, and perfectly matched the documented tattoos of Nicholas Alahverdian. DNA tests confirmed what the visual evidence suggested. Fingerprint analysis supported what the tattoos indicated. In November 2022, Edinburgh Sheriff Court made it official. Arthur Knight is indeed Nicholas Alahverdian, based on overwhelming biometric evidence. But even faced with the scientific certainty, the man continued his performance, speaking in a British accent, maintaining his alternative identity. And here's where things get shocking. One piece of evidence that Arthur Knight couldn't explain away, no matter what accent he used or story he told. The same man who had died from cancer was somehow alive, in perfect health except for COVID, thousands of miles away from where he was supposed to be buried. Picture yourself as an investigator. You've just proven someone faked their death, fled across continents, and assumed a new identity. Now what? How do you bring them to justice when 3 different countries are involved?
In early 2024, Alahverdian was extradited from Scotland to Utah to face rape and fraud charges. This represented the successful completion of a multi-year, multinational legal process involving Scottish courts evaluating American evidence and British medical systems cooperating with international law enforcement. Think about the complexity. A man allegedly commits crimes in multiple U.S. states, fakes his death, flees to Scotland under a false identity, gets arrested in a Glasgow hospital, fights extradition through British courts, and ultimately faces trial in Utah. Each step required coordination between different legal systems, different standards of evidence, different procedural requirements. During proceedings, a judge called him dishonest and manipulative, according to court transcripts, a judicial assessment that reflected the complexity of dealing with someone alleged to have constructed such elaborate deceptions. On October 16, 2024, in a dramatic courtroom moment, Alahverdian finally admitted to having faked his death and identity. He credited it to early trauma and claimed he received 2 credible death threats from Rhode Island officials, though he refused to identify them when pressed by prosecutors. But the forensic evidence was just the beginning. What happened next involved courts in 3 different countries and a legal battle that would span years. And the outcome shows us something crucial about justice in the digital age. If the person who hurt you vanished from the earth, at least according to the internet, would you still keep looking? Would you still believe justice was possible? Multiple women have accused him of rape and fraud, voicing the emotional and legal toll this prolonged case has taken. According to court documents, these allegations span years and multiple states, representing real people seeking justice through proper legal channels. What makes cases like this particularly difficult for survivors is how elaborate deception complicates the path to accountability. Imagine trying to seek justice against someone who has allegedly faked their own death. Imagine the additional trauma of seeing that person perform elaborate charades in international courts, extending legal proceedings for years. The alleged crimes include a 2008 sexual assault case where, according to prosecutors, the woman recognized Alahverdian from news coverage. Think about that moment, seeing the face of someone who allegedly harmed you, someone you thought was dead, suddenly appearing on your screen very much alive. Even his former adoptive father publicly identified him as Alahverdian, according to ABC News coverage, a detail that speaks to how thoroughly his alleged deception had unraveled, affecting even those who had once trusted and supported him. According to court filings and victim advocacy groups, these aren't abstract allegations.
They represent real people who have waited years for their day in court. Every delay, every extradition hearing, every identity dispute extended their wait for justice. But here's what's remarkable. Despite years of elaborate deception, despite international flight, despite assuming new identities, the legal system found a way to bring this case to trial. Right now, as you're watching this, your phone is creating digital breadcrumbs. Your location, your searches, even how long you pause on certain posts. Everything leaves a trail. Channel 4's four-part docuseries, Imposter, The Man Who Came Back from the Dead, detailed how investigators piece together digital deception cases. Modern forensic science has kept pace with digital deception through multiple verification systems that would have been science fiction just decades ago. Every social media post has metadata showing when and where it was created. Every account creation leaves IP address logs. Every login attempt creates timestamps that can be correlated with physical locations. As forensic experts told BBC investigators, biometrics like tattoos, scars, and fingerprints bridge the gap between online narrative and courtroom proof. But perhaps most importantly, there's behavioral consistency analysis. People can change their accents, their appearance, even their mannerisms, but deep behavioral patterns are incredibly difficult to mask completely. Voice pattern analysis, linguistic forensics, even the way someone structures their lies can provide identifying characteristics. Here's what should amaze you. Investigators can now analyze writing patterns to determine if two different online identities are actually the same person. The way you construct sentences, your vocabulary choices, even your punctuation habits create a unique digital fingerprint. This combination creates what experts call forensic convergence, when multiple independent lines of evidence all point to the same conclusion. In this case, that convergence was overwhelming. Now, here's what makes this case a landmark for 2025 and why it should concern anyone who uses the internet. The techniques used to catch Alahverdian are becoming standard practice for digital investigations worldwide. This isn't just about one case anymore. As we record this in August 2025, the techniques used to catch Alahverdian are becoming standard practice for digital investigations worldwide. Your digital footprint is being analyzed the same way. As we record this in August 2025, Nicholas Alahverdian is currently on trial in Utah. Jury selection began on August 5th for the first of two separate rape cases. The jury was seated on August 6th, and the trial officially began on Monday, August 12th. The first case centers around an alleged 2008 assault in Salt Lake County, while a second trial in Utah County is scheduled to begin in September. According to recent court filings, talks over plea agreements in both cases have fallen apart. In May 2025, both judges decided to hold evidentiary hearings in private due to concerns over case publicity and its impact on the jury pool. This demonstrates how high-profile digital deception cases require careful balance between public interest and fair judicial process. The man who once performed elaborate charades in Scottish courts, insisting he was Arthur Knight, now faces American justice under his real name. His defense attorney, Samantha Dugan, represents him in the Salt Lake County case, while the Utah County case will be presided over by 4th District Judge Derek P. Pullen. Think about this. The same person who convinced the world he was dead is now sitting in a Utah courtroom facing the consequences of allegedly trying to escape justice through digital deception. What's particularly significant about these 2025 proceedings is how they represent the culmination of an international investigation that began with social media posts and ended with DNA evidence. Let me ask you something. How many people in your social media feeds have you never met in person? How do you know they are who they say they are? This case offers crucial lessons for our increasingly digital world. It demonstrates that online verification is more complex than most people realize. Obituaries can be faked, social media grief can be manufactured, even extensive online histories can be constructed deceptions. But it also shows that forensic science has kept pace with digital deception. Law enforcement agencies now trained specifically on digital forensics and cross-jurisdictional cooperation for cases like this. International databases, real-time communication between agencies, and standardized forensic procedures are making it harder for alleged criminals to simply disappear by crossing borders. For ordinary internet users, this case highlights the importance of healthy skepticism about dramatic online claims. Before you share that shocking story, before you donate to that tragic cause, before you trust that online relationship, ask yourself, what evidence do I actually have that this is real? The same tools that allow criminals to deceive can be used by ordinary people to verify information. Reverse image searches, cross-referencing sources, checking official records. What makes this case particularly relevant for 2025 audiences is how it demonstrates that digital deception, no matter how elaborate, leaves forensic evidence that can be methodically uncovered and presented in court. Every lie leaves a trail. Every deception creates inconsistencies. Every false identity eventually collides with physical reality. Before we finish, I want you to think about your own digital life. What would investigators find if they analyzed your online presence? What story does your digital footprint tell? Let's break down the key lessons from the Nicholas Alahverdian case. Digital footprints are permanent. Every online action leaves traces that forensic experts can uncover even years later. International cooperation works. This case proves that borders don't protect fugitives in the digital age. Biometric evidence is definitive. Tattoos, DNA, and fingerprints can't be faked or explained away by accent changes. Victims deserve justice despite delays. Elaborate deceptions may complicate cases, but they don't prevent accountability. Verification matters in the digital age. Always cross-check dramatic online claims through multiple sources. Nothing digital ever truly disappears. Deleted posts, old accounts, and buried evidence can resurface when investigators know where to look. The responsible approach involves sticking to verified facts, respecting legal processes, and avoiding speculation that could interfere with ongoing proceedings. But here's the most important lesson. In our connected world, truth has a way of surfacing. It might take years, it might require international cooperation, it might need cutting-edge forensic science, but eventually, evidence speaks louder than deception. As Nicholas Alahverdian's trial continues in Utah courts, this case demonstrates that in our digital age, truth has a way of surfacing through careful investigation, international cooperation, and forensic science. Every element of this story comes from verified court records and established media reports from BBC, AP, ABC News, and Channel 4's documentary investigation. For the alleged victims seeking justice, these proceedings represent the culmination of years of waiting for accountability. The man who allegedly died twice now faces the reality of American justice. No matter how elaborate the deception, no matter how many aliases or accents, the evidence speaks clearly enough for courts to make definitive rulings. We'll continue following this case as the trials progress through 2025, and we'll keep investigating how digital deception is reshaping crime and justice in our connected world. But Nicholas Alahverdian isn't the only one who tried to erase themselves from history. In our next investigation, we'll uncover a case where someone didn't just fake their death, they tried to fake their entire existence, and they almost got away with it. Subscribe now, because that story will change how you think about identity forever. Because in our digital age, the truth may be more complex than ever, but it's also more discoverable than ever, if we know how to look.